What are your blind spots? By the end of this podcast or video, you're going to have 3 tips for finding out what your blind spots are. I'm Jono White, founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We work with leaders around the world. Wherever you're watching or listening to this, it really helps us out if you can subscribe, follow, like, share, so that more leaders can have our content, and hopefully we can help them to be the best they can be, and to keep you in the loop with everything we're doing as well. So what are your blind spots? Welcome to the Leadership Question of the Day podcast. That's your question for today. What are your blind spots? And what brought this to mind was a thought I had this morning. I was, it might have been last night actually, we were watching, Liz and I were watching something on Prime, Amazon Prime, and this ad came on for a new movie that's come out that is about sort of like one of those end of the world apocalyptic movies. Asteroid hits the earth, and I thought, I really love those movies. Now Liz hates those movies, and I realized in that moment, you know what, I've never quite thought of it before, or realized that how much I love these sort of disaster movies. And it got me thinking, if I don't even know that about myself, then what other things haven't I realized yet about myself? Now that's not a bad thing or a good thing. That's just something about me, that I like disaster movies. But there are much more serious things about our character and our skill set that really affect the people that we lead. So I wonder what your blind spots are. I mentioned I was going to give you 3 tips to find out what your blind spots are. The first tip is to invest in some profiling. Invest in some profiling, and you may need to invest in a coach to help you go through it as well. It depends what sort of profiling. A couple of options. I love the Enneagram. The Enneagram is very deep, so I use that a lot with teams where I have the time and space to really dig deep into it and look at it over a period of time. The best book that I've found about the Enneagram is a book called The Road Back to You. The Road Back to You. It's a fantastic book, and it basically unpacks the 9 different types of the Enneagram. The reason the Enneagram is so powerful is it goes very deep, like I said, and it looks at what drives you, what motivates you. It's not just about how you behave, it's about what actually drives your behavior, what motivates you uniquely in terms of how you're wired. And it also contains information on what it looks like when you're in a really healthy space, when you're doing okay, and when you're in a really bad space. And that's incredibly helpful for all of us, because the more we can understand, wow, okay, yeah, I'm recognizing this behavior in myself. I think I'm in a really healthy space. And also going, whoa, what's going on? This is not good, is really helpful as a leader. So that's the first one. I would recommend. A couple of other profiles. Disc profiling is great. It's really easy to dig your teeth into. The Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni's group, the Table Group. I love The Working Genius. That's all about how you get things done. So it's great, particularly if you're looking at a team and workspace and how you work together and you're wanting to understand yourself there. And if you want to find out what your blind spots are, the first thing to do is to invest in some profiling, and then potentially, once you dig a bit deeper, go and invest in a coach to actually walk through it with you. That's the first tip. The second tip for finding out your blind spots is to invest in 360-degree feedback. Now, if you're listening to this going, you know what, I don't have the resources to pay for that, then that's okay. There are ways to do 360-degree feedback that is inexpensive. Effectively, there's a couple of keys to 360-degree feedback for it to do well. The first is who you choose. So you really want, for it to be 360-degree, it's someone that is leading you in some way. It's someone that you're working alongside, and preferably multiple people at that level, and sometimes multiple people that are leading you as well, depending on your context. And if possible, multiple people that you're leading. So you can get very creative with this. If you're a student in year 11 and you're thinking, 360-degree feedback, you could get, you and your school could look at doing something with one of your teachers, with some of your fellow students, and maybe if you're involved in some sort of leadership or you're a coach, getting some feedback from some kids that are involved in that. That's just an example of how creative you can be with this. The other key is for it to be anonymous, if possible, and for someone else to collate it. So if you're serious about this, even if you don't have the resources to invest in a full 360-degree feedback solution, with someone like me to actually walk through it with you, then what you can do is you can actually just find someone you really trust, even if it's someone external to your space, and ask them if they would be involved in this. And all they're doing is they're the collator. You just give them the names of the people you'd like them to ask. They send out an email. Everyone sends through their details. They collate it. And the reason that's important is they can cut out anything where we all have bad days. And depending on the people we're leading or being led by, who sometimes, there are people who aren't as emotionally intelligent as they could be, and they say things that is more character assassination than helpful feedback. And so it's great to have someone external to filter some of that out. You don't want to filter too much out, but just anything that's really unhelpful, take that out. And also that way it comes to you anonymously, and they can just collate it. And that's one way you can do it. Find someone you trust, make sure it ends up being done anonymously, and be selective with who you're choosing. So that's the second thing, 360-degree feedback. And the third thing that I would encourage you to do is to read some fantastic books on leadership. I talk to a lot of leaders who are subject matter experts. So let's talk about schools for a second. School principals do an incredible job, and there's often different reasons they end up in the role as principals. Some have just always naturally been a leader who progresses in that direction, but there are some who are curriculum experts or pedagogy experts. That's their deal. There are others where it's really around business, like the business side of it, so buildings, and that's really their thing, is around facilities and buildings, or fundraising and marketing and growing enrollments is really their jam, and that's where their expertise is. And I use schools as an example because you just get a lot of fantastic educators who come into a leadership role, and then the challenge is that when you're the director of learning, maybe 80% of your success is can be based on your ability in the curriculum pedagogy space. Now, when you become a principal or head of school, suddenly 90% of your success isn't about curriculum or pedagogy. It completely flips. Maybe that's 10%, probably less, to be honest. Now that you're in a role like that, it's all about people management. It's all about vision casting and how you do values and culture. And that's a completely different skill set. So if you're a subject matter expert and you're in a significant leadership role, then go and read some books specifically on leadership. Read Brené Brown, fantastic books around vulnerability, which is a cornerstone of great leadership. Simon Sinek's work around Start With Why. Everything Patrick Lencioni, I highly recommend. The Advantage, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The Ideal Team Player, and I could go on. But just go and actually you can Google. I've just recently written a blog around 10 books to help you build a healthy culture through COVID, and so that would be a great place to start. And there's a book there's a Brené Brown book, a couple of Lencioni books on there. So there's some books around leadership for you to check out there. So there you go, 3 tips to work out what your blind spots are, because at the end of the day, just like me with that, looking at that movie and thinking, oh, you know what, that's something I've never seen about myself before. I do love natural disaster movies, which is funny. Then, I wonder what other things I don't know, and I wonder what other things you don't know. What are your blind spots, and how can you find them out so that we're not running around hurting people in our leadership when we could be working on things so that everyone around us wins. If you found this to be helpful for you in getting clear about your leadership, then wherever you are, if you're watching this or listening to this, and you can leave a comment with the word clarity. Once again, it really helps us out. Thank you so much when you subscribe and follow and like and share, because it gets the word out so we can help more leaders to become the best they can be. And there should also be in the description and in some different places, we have some great resources around finding out how do you rate as a leader. We've got a free scorecard. What's your leadership style? That's another free scorecard that we offer. where you can just go and quickly get some, in one of them's less than 2 minutes, is just answer 15 questions and get an idea of how am I going across the 5 key areas of leadership. So yeah, go to consultclarity.org as well and check out all of our content there about leadership. And thank you for listening or watching. And I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.